course, all of us know about the War of the Worlds and how much of an impact that was with people by way of radio. I won't revisit that, but surely the public was not ready for anything that would be of this subject because of the reaction that the public had to a well-designed radio program, as all of you have some sense of. That's a part of our history. Okay, 1941. Review the different classifications, and then we'll go to that story. My purpose here is they out there, a part of the cosmic family, know that the history of Mother Earth has a cyclical nature to it, which means that which is happening now has happened before. So they are very watchful of that appetite for technology that leads to the bombs being created, and then the health of Mother Earth is put at risk. So I think most of you have had some sense of a cyclical history that makes it possible for some kind of expectation because it's happened before. Okay, so there was this Dr. Hynek that was helpful in determining how then do we classify the experiences around this subject, ET and UFOs. And so there is close encounters. We're going to take 5 kinds. As a review, I've given you a little bit of a thumbnail on that. So close encounters of the first kind is seeing unidentified flying objects, notice, showing considerable detail. And something that is not far away, but less than 500 feet away, may be seen on the ground or at least close to the ground. That's a pretty significant sighting, not just something up in the air that acts differently than a star. And there are now some significant pictures to let you know that there has been a cooperation between them and some humans to make sure that significant pictures can be seen. And I'm going to just throw some of these in front of you because they know that there's going to be a process to open to this subject. So there's now significant pictures that are now available. And I won't give you any detail other than here is close encounters of the first kind, and how that there is a pretty strong assurance that these are real. They've been analyzed in a military way. Okay, close encounters of the second kind, when the UFO sighted leaves some physical effects. Or maybe there's some electrical interferences that's unexplained, and some impressions on the ground. Also, there could be some kind of memory, psychological memory, some kind of impression that would be classified as close encounters of the second kind. Close encounters of the third kind is what the movie was depicting. And that is clearly there's somebody inside, or perhaps even if they are robotic, it's still indicating that there is some kind of presence inside. So the humans see creatures inside, or from the UFO, there's occupants present. They could be humanoids or robots, but at least that's the stepped up experience of this subject. And I think they know that it's going to be a long time to sensitize the American public. And I give the suggestion that my time overseas indicates there's a lot of people outside of America that is a lot more ready, that's terrible English, for this subject. And some of the resources that I have gotten comes from overseas, because America seems to be in a little bit slower mode for working with this subject. So that's the close encounters of the third kind. The fourth kind, notice the first part of this. It's when humans are invited into a craft. It's helpful to get some stories of Native Americans that have been invited to go in because of that relationship that seems to be over a long period of time. And then the second part of that is that whenever there are species out there that have some objectives and some agendas to bring people in by abduction, as it's called there. We will have more of an understanding when we get into the next part, because we'll be reaching into the President Eisenhower phenomenon and how that contributes to why that this Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind became a reality caused by an agreement with President Eisenhower. Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, when humans really want to contact, not only to contact, but to have an ongoing relationship. They want to communicate directly. And so that is the five that I think is useful for setting the foundation for our studies here. I wanted to cover that this particular base so that we are ready for the first real happening of 1941. Boy, quite an experience that. So let's give a good attention to this. This is a neat happening, and it has been confirmed. I've put some details here for you. Cape Girardeau is, of course, south of St. Louis, some 50, 60 miles there. So here is a Southern Baptist Reverend, William Hoffman, born there in 1881. Notice in the spring of 1941 at Cape Girardeau, he was asked. Now, this information is indicating that even as he was a reverend, they did ask him to give last rites to a crash. You would think that would fall into the perimeter of a Catholic priest or something. But anyway, he was asked by the police department to go to a plane crash outside of town. This occurred late in the evening. The police was to pick him up. A couple hours later, and a car showed up around midnight, if my memory serves me right. And the pastor looked out, and it was not a police car. It was a plain marked black car that picked him up to go to this event. A little interesting detail with that that's not included in this one. The letter said, quote, and this is a granddaughter of this reverend. Grandfather said it wasn't an airplane or like any craft that he had ever seen. It was broken and scattered all around, but one large piece was still together, and it appeared to have a rounded shape with no edges or seams. It has a very shiny metallic finish. You could see inside one section and see what looked like a metal chair with a panel with many dials and gauges, non-familiar looking to him. He said that when he got there, men were already sifting through the things. There were some police officers, some plainclothes people, and military men. We're actually going to hear from the granddaughter. She explains this a little bit. There were 3 bodies, not human, that had been taken from the wreckage and laid on the ground. Grandfather said prayers over them so that he got a close look, but he did not touch them. He didn't know what had killed them because they did not appear to have any injuries and they were not burned. It was hard for him to tell if they had suits or if it was their skin, because we're looking at nighttime too. But they were covered head to foot in what looked like wrinkled aluminum foil. He could see no hair on the bodies, and they had no ears. They were small framed like a child, about 4 feet tall, but had larger heads and longer arms than a human child. They had very large oval shaped eyes. No noses, just holes, no lips with a small slit for a mouth. This comes from another researcher. Her name is Linda Moulton Howe. Some of you might recognize her name and where this information is. So I have that video. So here is the granddaughter speaking of the event. The event from the Reverend was shared with his wife completely, and they held on to this subject for a long, long time. And then whenever the Reverend was transitioning to die, he wanted to make sure that his wife would tell somebody. And so the full story was then told from the wife to this granddaughter.
Grandfather had been called out, that someone had called in that there had been a plane crash outside of town, and would he be willing to go to minister to people there, which he did. Upon arriving, it was a very different situation. It was not a conventional aircraft as we know it. There were 3 entities or non-human people there. 2 were just outside the saucer, and a third one was further out. His understanding was that perhaps that third one was not dead on impact. So Father did pray over them, give them last rites. Not long after they arrived, military just showed up, surrounded the area. Grandfather didn't know what was said to the others, but he was told, this didn't happen, you didn't see this, this is national security, it is never to be talked about again.